Today on CityCast Chicago, a forest city opened its doors on the southwest side 60 years ago and was once one of the city's largest and most popular shopping malls. Now, it's just the city council vote away from being demolished. It's Wednesday, October 8th. I'm Jacoby Cochran, and this is what Chicago's talking about. If you've been watching the news closely, you may have seen that National Guard troops from Texas have landed in the Chicagoland area and are getting set up in southwest suburban Elwood. This comes after a federal judge declined to immediately block deployment following a lawsuit from state and city officials. There's going to be a hearing on that tomorrow. We are going to be following this closely throughout the weeks and the weeks to come because the truth is there is no end in sight. So please make sure you subscribe to the Hey Chicago newsletter for the latest updates. We are constantly putting you on our colleagues around the city of Chicago who are on the front lines, keeping us updated. For now, though, let's turn our attention to a local story that's been unfolding for years and years. This is my childhood mall, y'all. I've got Chicago Sun-Times architecture critic Lee Bay in the building. Lee, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you. Good to be back.
We've also got Block Club Chicago reporter Atavia Reed with us. Atavia, always good to have you with us.
Hello, I'm so happy to be back here.
Let's start with the recent news. Forest City Mall was sold back in 2019 to a New York-based group. Now a Chicago-based developer wants to purchase the property. For what exactly?
Well, they're hoping to turn the mall into essentially transportation logistics kind of center. So there will be warehouses and trucks rolling in and out of it. Not the entire mall. They're not looking to demolish the whole thing. I think the theaters will still be there, but largely it would be changed.
Atavia, a community meeting to discuss the proposal was planned for August, but then was canceled and moved to September. How did that go? How have neighbors been responding to this?
Yeah, so there were a few dozen neighbors that showed up to this community meeting. And prior to it, they'd signed a petition. Over 900 people had signed this petition saying they did not want this industrial campus to come to their community. So, they were very open to listening. Alderman Derek Curtis was the first to really present the project and saying that the community needs this, the ward needs this, that Forest City Mall at this point is an eyesore, a detriment to the community, and bringing something like this in will be very profitable for the community and just look better than what neighbors have had to deal with for the last few years. But what neighbors wanted to know was, one, how much noise will this produce? Will there be pollution in the community that they have to worry about? And also, what company will be warehoused here? Bridge Industrial is building this on a speculative basis, meaning that they do not know which tenant will occupy the space until it's close to completion. They're saying that might not be until 2028. So neighbors just want to know what's next, but they did agree that Forest City Mall at this point does have to go.
And Bridge Industrial is familiar to buying up these types of plot. I know that they purchased about 240,000 square feet out in Downers Grove with plans to demolish and replace that with an industrial site. But they also had a proposal like this in 2023 out in Deerfield, but some vocal opposition from people in the neighborhood ultimately killed that deal. So I bring those two examples up to say, Lee, is this a done deal? Is this something that is just going to speed through city council, end up happening? Or is this still, as Atavia talked about some of their plans, still kind of speculative, still like on the table, but not all the way like through?
In this town, I think it's never done until you see the ribbon cutting, right? But they did file before zoning committee. I can't remember now because I was off a bit if it got it had to get approved by the zoning committee. I don't think it's been before council yet. I don't think
they took it up in their first slate of meetings back.
And I think that this kind of give and take with the public is a way to get the deal more bulletproof so that it can be put before city council. But yeah, you never know about these things until it's done. But it certainly seems to have some velocity behind it.
Atavia, it doesn't really sound like neighbors are necessarily fighting for the mall itself as much as they want the land to be redeveloped with the community in mind. What are people, like the folks who signed that petition, what are they hoping comes here rather than, yet another industrial site?
So something that was proposed was building residential mixed-use housing where people can live there, but also maybe they have more businesses that are owned by local business owners. Ward Miller was also at this community meeting, and he presented maybe peeling off all of the walls that are there to see what's underneath so you can repurpose this building and do something new with it. Someone else also wondered, why don't they do something like what happened with the Salt Shed? Why not make this a music venue or an entertainment hub? Because there are a lot of mixed ages in the community, but not a lot of things for young people to do. This could be a draw so that families stay in the neighborhood rather than moving out to other communities once they reach a certain age.
Mm-hmm. I mean, talking about being a multi-generational third space, that's what Ford City was for me coming up throughout the late 90s, early 2000s. But even then, it had already gone through some iterations. But I remember it being thriving, right? The food courts were full on the weekends. That's where we went to buy new skates. That's where we went. There was a recording studio in there where we were in grammar school, where we would go record our 4th and 5th and 6th grade first ever records. To get a spray painted t-shirt. John's Garage had the best dinosaur nuggets in the city back in the day. You know, when you all talk to people about this story, you know, what type of memories do they have of Ford City? What was this place? What did this place mean to folks?
I talked to a guy, Pete Costanis, who runs this blog on that kind of it takes this nostalgic look at Chicago. And
is it Vanished Chicagoland, or is that a different one?
Yes, that's the one. And he remembers essentially the Ford City that I remember, where, you know, there were restaurants and, you know, in addition to places to buy clothes and, you know, things, there were restaurants and various things aside, you know, events that happened. You know, the thing about malls of this generation, when they were in their first generation, these were attempts to bring, you know, all the things that a main street would have, including shopping and all that kind of stuff, but also, you know, parades and music and all that kind of stuff, to bring that indoors, put it under air conditioning and put it under a roof, right? So it was that kind of place where you could go in its earliest years.
Yeah, and it's funny that you both mentioned that, especially just going to the mall when you're young. So I grew up a few blocks away from Forest City Mall. So to say that my childhood was spent at this mall would be an understatement. Eventually, when I could hang out with my friends and go out, we would stop at the Lindy's Gertie's that's in the parking lot right there on 79th and Pulaski, then walk our way down to Forest City Mall. And like you said, it had these thriving restaurants, these places. I remember my father used to really like these cheesy nachos from this one place that was right when you entered. He used to get his jewelry cleaned there. At one point, it had 3 floors, I believe. We would go down to the basement.
Bro, the connection, aka what was it, Peacock Alley, right, in the decades prior. Bro, I thought going into underground Forest City was like the coolest thing when I was younger.
Same, and like having to enter through like the parking lot too, and going down those stairs with that glass encasing. Like I thought it was so cool. I know my parents used to go there, I think, to even file taxes, and I would find it so boring, but just be so fascinated that we were underground inside of a mall. So just being there, seeing the state that it's in now is kind of a shock. And speaking to community members, they have the same mindset. Like they remember when you can go there and get what you need for the day or shop around, walk around with friends. And now it looks nothing like that. I mean, they have gaping holes in the ceiling. When it rains, it pours through. It's completely different.
You looking for a new adventure this fall? Consider rock climbing at First Ascent Climate and Fitness. We got a buy one, get one day pass for CityCast Chicago listeners, so you can bring a friend or, you know, go and use both for yourself. Even if you ain't never tried climbing, it's actually a little bit easier to get up there than you might think. Across its 4 Chicago locations, First Ascent offers a very supportive environment to help you get started. Plus, the climbs are color-coded, so anybody at any ability level can find a route to seeing. That's a little climbing lingo if you ain't know. It means get to the top of that damn thing. They also got yoga classes and fitness equipment all included with your day pass or membership. Again, CityCast listeners can buy a 1-day pass and get another one of them things for free. Learn more and get your BOGO passes at faclimbing.com/CityCastShot. That's faclimbing.com/CityCastCHI. Shy. Same page? Cool. If we said it once, we said it 1,000 times. It's spooky season, y'all, but what doesn't have to be so damn scary are your old drafty windows. Not if you replace them with Window Nation. Window Nation offers top quality replacement windows with a lifetime warranty. And if you act now, you can make no payments for 2 years. No, for real, no payments, no monthly payment, no down payment, and no interest until 2027. And if you're looking for high quality, affordable windows for your home, then Window Nation is the place to be. Get started on your free estimate before October 31st to save big on your replacement windows. Get in before Halloween. Head to windownation.com. If we said it once, we said it 1,000 times. It's spooky season, y'all, but what doesn't have to be so damn scary are your old drafty windows. Not if you replace them with Window Nation. Window Nation offers top quality replacement windows with a lifetime warranty. And if you act now, you can make no payments for 2 years. No, for real, no payments, no monthly payment, no down payment, and no interest until 2027. And if you're looking for high quality, affordable windows for your home, then Window Nation is the place to be. Get started on your free estimate before October 31st to save big on your replacement windows. Get in before Halloween. Head to windownation.com. Yeah, let's kind of talk about what it looks like when you go, because we talk about the connection, Peacock Alley. That's, I think, shut off and gated off to people. Like when I see Ford City come up on my timeline, or even when I was searching to prepare for this conversation, some people already treat the building like it's an abandoned site for like urban explorers or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. There are a few videos like that about with people looking inside and trying to get in and trying to find that connection in Peacock Valley and get beyond Peacock Alley and get beyond there. And of course, we know that it's that giant parking lot is the site of people doing car meetups and donuts and that kind of stuff. So you're right. You're very much right. It's almost turning into this kind of vacant and forgotten place, even though it's not quite there yet.
And speaking with Alderman Curtis, I mean, he said the mall is about 54% vacant now, and that the only tenant left is JCPenney. Their lease ends in February 2026. So if they leave, then that kind of leaves this huge vacant, empty building. And speaking of that parking lot, I mean, just our director of photography, Colin Boyle, took photos of how it looks, and you could fit an entire cart in the potholes that are in this parking lot now. It's sad to see.
Yeah, people talk about the current owners, the people who bought it back in 2019, Namdar, and that they had a reputation for disinvestment, for sort of kind of, sucking the remaining resources out of a property, but not really investing it, which is interesting because just a year earlier in 2018, there were some internal and external facelifts to the building. Lee, when this thing opened in 1965 on the site of former wartime industrial and manufacturing plants, this was a thing to be marveled in the iterations in the decades to come. How would you describe Ford City at its height?
At its height, it was like a lot of these first generation malls. It was the place to go. The downtowns in big cities were beginning to fall off, particularly our State Street here in Chicago. And the population, white population, began to move to the suburbs, or at the very least to outer rings of the city, and these malls kind of became the place. Ford City was two, because Brickyard Mall got built, but there were supposed to be two more of these malls. The idea behind that Richard J. Daley had, Old Man Daley had, was that if people are leaving our main streets, leaving our state streets, leaving our 63rd and Halsteads, our six corners to go to the suburbs. We're going to catch them before they get to the border, right? So we're going to put some malls there. So the idea was there was the Brickyard Mall on the northwest side. There was Ford City. There was supposed to be one. It never got built. That would be out, at 110th, 115th, and what's now the Bishop Ford Expressway. And then there was one more due on the north side, maybe Rogers Park a little bit further north, but only the two got built. This was the thing. These malls were the thing at the time. And then of course, things begin to happen. Retail chains begin to close. Population shifts. People stop buying as much in person, and we see what's happening because of that.
And again, throughout the 80s, there were shifts. The big bowling alley closed. One tent pole store would close and get replaced by another, maybe a Carson's. Sears moves in 1989 and is there for 20 years. Atavia, can you talk about, for the people who still work in the mall, for people who still have stations in the mall, what has it been like to see this much sharper decline over the last couple of decades?
Yeah, so speaking with some of the business owners, they speak about the heyday things that we've mentioned and how customers were always streaming in and out. There's this one jewelry shop that's posted right in the center of the mall. It's right near these other stores. So while you're walking out of your Bed Bath and Beyond or, your J.C. Penney, get your jewelry cleaned, come back and finish doing that. But they're saying now it's not like that anymore. They barely see anyone in the mall at all. They barely have any business. They have faithful customers who still come through because they know they're there. They've been there for decades at this point. But outside of that, it's horrible now. So one business owner I spoke to, they plan on moving. They, at the time, didn't even know that the mall could be closing, but they had plans already to relocate to Chicago Ridge Mall in the suburbs. So yeah, again, just sad to see, and business owners are really feeling the pain of what happens when malls start to deteriorate.
You cited one professor who said, in a lot of ways, this was something set up to fail. It's car centric. It's run for the top. It's all about consumerism, and these shopping habits, these things change over time. But at the same time, this was a third space for young people. This was a place we all felt like we can go. The only place that I was really allowed to take the train on my own when I was, still in elementary school. What do you think we lose when these places just sort of disappear and aren't replaced with other, spots for young people, other places for people to kind of meet up and hang out?
Just like you said, you lose that hangout spot. I mean, teens, when you think about it, all the spaces that can go to, places where they like to congregate, hang out, talk to each other, that feels safe and enclosed, where their parents can know where they're at. You think of a mall, right? Even if you're not buying anything, you're walking in and out of the stores and you form some really core memories there. But without this mall there, they can't really do that. And nearby, they have to go to either near suburbs to find the next mall, or there aren't that many options, unfortunately, in this West Lawn community right now. So like you said, yeah, there's not many options.
Lee, it didn't have to be this way. There are other malls. I think of Orland, Chicago Ridge. There are still malls in the area that are, for all practical purposes, I don't know if thriving is the right word. I haven't been to Orland in a minute, but there are malls that still have a lot of activity, a lot of shops that are still there, aren't looking at the same amount of vacancies. So what are the factors in particular that led to Forest City malls slow decline? Was it as simple as people stopped going or people stopped investing? The owner stopped investing?
Well, I think it's a couple of things. I mean, I think it's like the old song, Jerry Butler, "Only the strong survive," and that's kind of where we are, right? Where the strongest of the malls will survive, particularly ones that are located in well-populated suburban areas, because we're largely talking about this. Although the Ford City Mall is an urban mall, it's really a suburban mall because it's built around the edge of the city, right? So those malls, the ones that are around solid middle class and upper middle class areas, those will continue to do well. Um, Ownership plays a role. Now, Atavia made this point obviously earlier that when you get people who own the malls who are only looking to squeeze out that dime, right? They're not looking to really invest. Then you kind of get this. I think generally speaking, though, malls, particularly the ones that are fading and have faded, they have lost track of what made them special. It wasn't necessarily the aggregation of stores. It was those little things you mentioned. Here's where I can go to get my jewelry clean. Here's where I can go to get an apple pie. I mean, it was those little things added to it that made it good. That made it good. We saw the same thing. And if you're old like me, man, we saw the same thing when I was a kid in the '70s when State Street began to go south. Back then, they had to put the State Street Mall in, which was a bomb, and they had to ultimately rip it out. That the first things to go off State Street, it wasn't the movie theaters or necessarily the big stores. It was the game room where you could play Pac-Man or Space Invaders. It was a crazy popcorn shop. It was those kind of things. When those kind of things begin to disappear, um, it began to lose its specialness. And then pretty soon after that, the big things started falling.
This may be kind of too far out of scope, but we've talked a few times about property owners who may own buildings in the city where they leave things that sit vacant for a while, where, again, they extract resources while the property sort of falls to disarray. Are there any mechanisms for the city to hold these type of property owners accountable?
Well, it takes a solid alderman. I mean, I'm not saying that this Alderman Curtis isn't. I'm just speaking in general. Who can ride herd on these properties. The city has the tools it needs. I mean, it has, building inspectors and Department of Business and all those things that it can use to kind of bring these people into to help push these people into line. The fact is, when does it? If you sound the alarm when it's too late, the city can be kind of powerless in it. But there are tools that the city has, and of course, it can always pass legislation to do whatever it wants to do to increase those powers, but it hasn't often.
I know both of you have been following this for the last few months. The last meetings took place in September. Atavia, do you have any timeline on when we may expect City Council to take this up? And if they move forward with rezoning this, what is the timeline for kind of the disappearance for the bulk of the property?
Yeah, so right now, when it will appear before City Council is TBD, but Bridge Industrial did mention at its community meeting that they expect to close on the property by late 2026. They hope to open the campus for business by 2028. And in the meantime, Alderman Derek Curtis said he plans on hosting more community meetings with people, both with and without the company, to really hear what they want. He repeatedly reiterated that he wants to do what the community wants. He wants to bring something there that will be profitable and great. But if this business does not go there, then the community will be left with nothing, pretty much. So neighbors are waiting with bated breath to hear what happens next.
And Lee, last question to you. In your write-up, you talked about this industrial proposal deserving more scrutiny. I guess my big question is scrutiny from who here? We have neighbors talking out, but the alderman seems pretty excited for this industrial future. And often in this city, when an alderperson is on board, everyone else tends to kind of fall in line.
Well, that's true. When I wrote that, though, there had been no public discussion about this at all. So I was really, really, really kind of talking about that, but also really wanting the Department of Planning, especially, to kind of weigh in on this. I mean, too often in the city, we get what we get in terms of development is what's brought to us. And what we don't get, too often what we don't get is a city plan that says, you know what, if this mall goes south, and it's been going south for 10 years, here's what we want here. Here's what's best for here. But what we get instead is, a deal comes, Alderman feels pressure to do something because there's nothing else in the pipe, and then we get what we get. That's not good development. And that's not what a big city like Chicago ought to be doing. The city can encourage what it wants. It could say, in theory, all right, you've got your industrial park, but along with this, we want more retail. We want housing for the workers. I mean, it can suggest and push what it wants, as opposed to just saying it's either all or nothing.
Yeah, again, in so many of these conversations, it feels as if alders kind of hand over some of the leverage to the investors and the developers. I think about even the conversation that's taking place around the fire stadium. It seems like once a developer came in with a plan and some money to get it moving, it was just like, oh, well, we don't need to do all those traffic studies and think about bringing the neighborhood in here. Let's just kind of move this forward. And now it's already made its way through the full city council.
Yeah, and that's exactly what neighbors presented at this community meeting as well. They asked Alderman Curtis, okay, you've seen that this mall has been deteriorating for years now. Did you reach out to any other buyers? Did you try to seek who would want to redevelop, repurpose the space? And his answer was no, just because it's such a huge project, he wasn't sure who would want to take it over. So when Bridge Industrial came knocking, it was like yes, please, this is great. I think his quote was, "Who else is going to invest $200 million into this space?"
Well, it sounds like whether this plan moves forward or not, the days are very numbered for Forest City Mall. And this conversation in some ways feels like a bit of a eulogy, a farewell. Do either of you all have favorite memories at Forest City Mall, whether the shop closed, recently or even, years ago?
Well, for me, I'm at a disadvantage. My mall coming up was Evergreen Plaza.
Yeah.
But I would imagine that any person my age would probably, have similar feelings about Ford City. It's where you bought your first suit or your first this or your second that, that kind of thing.
Yeah, you mentioned the shop that had the spray painted shirts. I have two older sisters, and I remembered when there used to be a photo studio when you first walked in where you can get your shirt spray painted, and then you could take like those kind of like cheesy photos together. And I saw that they did that, and I was like so young and so jealous. And I was like, please, I have to do this with y'all. And they took me there, and I did. So that's a really fun core memory. And I remember the smokehouse restaurant that was right there, which I know is greasy, not good for you food, but like once like a month, my mom would kind of let me have it, some of those cheese fries, and I would be so excited to try those as well. So it's sad to see it all go.
Yeah. We used to go to Forest City Mall, hang out for a while, go sneak into a couple of movies, and then go back to the mall. And I would watch my older brother and his homie James just go in there and record some of the most poorly mixed songs that I've heard in my life.
Well, I think that if you live in Harvey or you patronize River Oaks Mall, I mean, it's it's coming to you next. What's happening here? These kind of inner ring malls that are in working class areas. I mean, they're unless there's some interesting and inventive thinking, this is what's going to happen. And then the question is that the best thing for a neighborhood?
Yeah, I'd say this news is very important for people who live in the West Lawn community. But also, if you drive through Burbank at all, if you take Cicero to get to Midway to fly out, this will or could also impact you as well because it'll be right near that site. So think about that. Think about how you might go through this community and what this can mean for you too.
I want to give a huge thank you to our guest today from Block Club Chicago, Atavia Reed. Thank you for making time.
Thank you. This was so fun.
And from the Chicago Sun-Times, Lee Bay.
Thank you. I had a blast.
Before we get out of here, I want to thank some folks who became members during this fall campaign who've joined over the last couple of days. Shout out Jill VR, Elizabeth C, Melissa K, Rhoda Y, Susan A, and Tiffany. Yes. That was a special request. Tiffany asked me to sing it, so I tried to oblige. We got so many people we are going to be thanking throughout this week. Seriously, y'all, thank you for signing up, showing your support. Even if you only subscribe so you can get your hands on that exclusive tote bag, I appreciate you. And I'm hoping that you, forget to cancel your subscription if that was your plan. That's all you can hope for. It's Banned Books Week, and stores across Chicago are hosting events. Women and Children First have artist talks today, Friday, and Sunday. Build Coffee and Books is hosting a virtual event tonight with Clint Smith. Haymarket House has a radical used book fair this Saturday from 11 to 4. One last thing, nominations have opened for the Chicago Readers Best of Chicago 2025. We are trying to snag that 5th Best Podcast Award in a row. Yes, we're a little greedy. Over here, so help us get there. Also, please nominate us in the City Life category for Best Newsletter. We try and get Best Chicago Newsletter up in this piece as well. I'm going to drop a link for you in the show notes. As always, we appreciate you for listening, for making time. We're going to be back bright and early tomorrow. We'll talk to you then. Peace.